1, 2, 3. Downside. Downside. You're listening to The Downside.
The Downside.
With Gianmarco Soresi.
How are y'all doing tonight, everyone? Hello, sorry, forgive me. Hello, how are you? Thank you for coming. Thank you for braving the cold to be here. My name is Gianmarco Soresi. This is a live recording of the Downside podcast. So just so you guys know, a round of applause if you listen to the podcast, I assume. Some of you, good.
Wow.
So just so you know, I know when you listen at home, you know, in the privacy of your room, you're laughing hard. You are laughing at all the jokes. This is a live show, so feel free. You don't have to be polite. You can laugh. You can make noise. This is a show, and we're very happy to have you. I'm here with my co-host, star of Titanic off Broadway, Russell Daniels.
Hi.
There you go. Yes. Thank you. And we're joined today. We're so. This is above our pay grade. Very excited to have our second Tony-nominated guest of The Downside. Please, big round of applause for Joshua Henry joining The Downside.
Yeah.
Oh, hello, Joshua. How are you?
I'm so good. How you doing?
Thank you. No, I want to say, we talked a little bit. I went to the University of Miami for musical theater. One of the biggest mistakes I made in my entire life. But one of the stars. One of the name that always was passed around to keep us writing our tuition checks for $50,000 was Joshua Henry. He graduated the year before I got there, but you were the guy. I had a teacher, and he would talk about your work ethic. And he said, this teacher, he said, I told Joshua one summer, I said, if you want to be on Broadway, you got to get strong. And he said, you came back from that summer with big, huge fucking arms. Oh. And and I was like, I didn't take that advice. I didn't do that part at all. But I'm very honored to have you here.
Oh, gosh, thank you so much. It's nice to be here representing the U.
The U.
As we call it.
You had a better experience than me, I think. But I did know you you did a master class, and then I met you once on a subway. You don't remember, it's okay. I remember I met you. I met you briefly. I remember it specifically because it was about a 30-second discussion. I shook your hand 3 times during that discussion.
Gianmarco.
That's how anxious I was that I shook your hand. I shook it again for some reason, and you were very nice. But the third one, I saw just a glint in your eye of why.
I forgot.
Why is he shaking my hand again?
Yeah.
But it all came to here. So yes.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm really good. I really don't remember that.
Yes,
like
please.
you would think 3 times. Like I'm gonna definitely.
Yeah.
remember,
Maybe I'd done 4. You would have remembered. You'd have been like that. Oh my God, the 4 handshake guy wants to do the podcast. So I welcome to The Downside. For people listening at home, this is a place where we're free to complain. We can be negative. You seem like a very positive guy.
I am.
But feel free to let it go.
All right.
Let it slide.
Just
be
for
honest.
tonight, I'm just
All the auditions you didn't get, let them fester through you and let it bleed out today. For those of you who don't know, Joshua is a very accomplished a Broadway performer. You just did Beauty and the Beast live.
Woo!
Stressful?
Yeah. It was not, actually.
Really?
I mean, it was really fast-paced. Beauty and the Beast Live we did for, you can see it on Disney Plus anywhere now. But it was 4.5 weeks of rehearsal and performance and getting like 6,000 shots. And it was, so that was the stressful part about it.
But was it live when it was live?
It was in front of a live audience. It wasn't live right, when you were seeing it. At that point, we had it in the can.
Has that always been the case, or is that new? Because
no, sometimes they try to actually do it live, which, in my opinion, everyone's saying that's why I don't think they're that good.
Sure. Sure.
So, you can record it live in front of an audience, but we did like 3 passes of everything so that we can just select a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Because when
But it's still billed a little bit. It's not quite clear in the billing. No one says live pre-recorded. I'm going to start billing this as live. For now on all the podcast episodes, say, well, it was live when we recorded it.
Yeah.
People were alive during the recording session. Because what was the first one of this, what was the first live one?
Sound of Music.
Sound of Music.
With Carrie Underwood, if you saw that.
And who was the guy? The guy from True Blood, right? What's his name? The guy from True Blood.
I don't
He
know.
was the guy.
I don't remember his name, but
And it was met with I think people liked it.
I think people loved Carrie, and
What
I
was
think
what was the one they hated? Because there was one.
Peter Pan, they were pretty tough on.
Okay, yeah.
oh yeah.
Broadway always has a mix where, first of all, Broadway, a lot of, and I say this with love, as myself included, a lot of bitchiness, a lot of like jabbing, but there's also mixed with like an extreme positivity because we all know theater is about to die any day now, and we have to support.
Yes.
So there was always like someone, like there's always like a contingency complaining, and then there's another contingency on Twitter like, guys, do you know how hard it is to make a Broadway show?
Yeah, and I've been a part of that contingency because it's like half of the 70% of the banter online is like, they could have gotten somebody to do this, or why did they get that person? I'm like, this is the first time, especially The Sound of Music.
Sure.
There's only been like 10 of them in the last 10 years.
Yeah, well, I remember Rent was the one, which I think that was live.
That was
where someone got injured.
Yeah, and then halfway through, you saw him. He was in a wheelchair. Roger.
Oh, brutal!
Just
Brutal.
Like with the guitar. Yeah, it was.
They should just change it. Instead of AIDS, he just hurt his leg, and that was like the thing. I feel like that's because that was the rumor that like for high school productions of Rent that they did. I had heard a rumor that they had a high school version of Rent where it was pink eye instead of AIDS.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Which I don't know how.
Yo.
Because that means Roger's girlfriend killed herself over pink eye, and it's like just wait a couple days.
Yeah.
No need to do this.
I love when schools change something of the show to like add their own. Like I heard a story once of they didn't change it to make it safer or anything, but it was a production of Annie, and at the end they changed it so the very last scene after they're like getting a new deal for Christmas, she's been adopted, everything's exciting. They had her wake up in the orphanage again, like it was all a dream.
Oh, I love that.
None of that good stuff happened, and it was just a dream. I was like, what a bold take as a high school to be like, this is what we're going to say.
Do that with every musical, every happy ending musical. What other musicals could you just flip on?
I also heard of a production once that had, at the end of Company, he sings Being Alive.
Yeah.
They had him shoot himself.
I love it! I love it! I love it! Every play I ever wrote, by the way, the first draft always involved me killing myself on stage.
Yeah.
I love that kind of ending. I was trying. Oh, there was a production of Hamilton that was at
Texas somewhere, right?
in Texas at a church where they somehow made it anti-gay. They somehow slipped that message in there somehow in the story of the Founding Fathers.
I don't remember all the messages, but there were a few messages that they took out and put their own messages in. And I'm really cool with Lin-Manuel Miranda. And I remember when he just started tweeting about that, and I think he just got on Instagram, and he sent them like a cease and desist.
Yeah.
And it was like, Twitter was blowing up. But yeah, he was not too pleased about that. Thankfully, they owned up to it afterwards, and they were like, we were so wrong. We should have never done this without permission and changing. So
We're still anti-gay, but we should have gotten permission for all of this.
Our position is the same, but we were wrong to not ask first.
Publicly, yeah.
So I thought to kind of start off, we'd go through, because I was a big theater kid. Russell is still a theater kid. You're full on off Broadway boy now.
Yeah.
So we thought we'd talk about some just our most disastrous performance, something going wrong. Did you have one?
I have a couple, but I think one that I always think of when I was a freshman in high school, I had a small part. I was in Bye Bye Birdie, and I was playing. I don't remember the name. It was like I had one line, but I was the understudy for like the leads, like the dad part,
Sure.
And my line was, "Come on, Alice, Conrad's over here." And we I grab Alice, we run across the stage, say the line, and we run to the train station.
You didn't say it like that, did you? You put some.
No. I really sold it. But so one day we're backstage, and it's the show, and Alice isn't there, and it's time to go, and I'm panicking, and I was like, I have to do this line. So I grabbed the nearest person to me, which was like a 4th grade boy. Kept the blocking the same. Ran out holding his hand. And I said, "Come on." Realized I didn't have a name for him. So I'm not great at improv. So I was like, "Come on." Longest pause ever. "Come on, Tom." Didn't even use his real name. Just made up Tom. And Conrad's over here, so flustered, ran into the train station, which was on wheels, rolled across the stage, and then sadly just walked off. Stopped running and just walked sadly off. That was, yeah.
Names are tough. That's why
It's hard when you have one line in the show and you completely ruin it. You know?
Just built it up and you just couldn't.
Yeah.
Now, mine is singing. Mine's a singing fail, and I think it's because you did Carousel, and it was at Miami. We both went University of Miami, and it was a Rodgers and Hammerstein. What do you call it? A song medley show.
Review.
It means you gave up. And it means you needed something that fit 12 people that don't really fit a musical. You need to give them
These
all
are all the people
part.
that didn't get into the
They
musical.
paid $50,000 a year. Give them a song on a stage for this. And we sang that song from The King and I, which I should not be singing. It's racist. And but I did Soliloquy, and Soliloquy, epic song, epic 10-minute song. Where Billy Bigelow, he's imagining having to raise a boy, how he's going to raise him, and then he's like, but what if it's a girl? I got to take care of her.
Yeah.
And it ends with this big moment where he's like, if I have a girl, and he goes, he's going to take care of her, and he's like, I'll go out and make it, or steal it, or take it. And so I was doing, and listen, thank you, but
I think it's higher.
I did.
Yeah.
And I went up there, and it's a long song, and I went, I'll go out and make it, or steal it, or take it, or die.
Oh, no.
And let me say, I've bombed on stage as a stand-up comedian, and it hurts, but nothing will ever come close to that feeling I had that night. Because it's like it's 7 minutes leading up to this moment, and no one can tell you it was the audience's fault. No one can tell you. No one can comfort you. People cannot make eye contact with you. You're walking back there. No one can say they didn't know. No one noticed. Because there's just something with the male voice. The sound of the crack is so awful, and I really do think. This happened to me like a couple times, like that epic of a crack. And I think that was, for me, the beginning of the end of being a singer. I think after 4 years of college.
Was that senior year?
It was senior year, yeah. So I practiced, and I practice every day. And I feel like when I look back at like my musical theater career, I'm like, I don't think I was good enough to be a singer eight times a week. I don't think my body was right for it. And I feel like, if you're a basketball player and you're 4 feet tall, you know pretty quick. You're gonna have a tough time. But the voice, it's inside you. So you think maybe you got it, maybe you don't. You work, and then you hit a wall. And
Well,
so
you don't hit the note.
you don't hit the note.
Yeah.
And then you want to go into a wall because it's so painful. Now, have you always?
I understand that feeling. I mean, there were a few times when I was doing Carousel on Broadway where, that was. Why are you laughing already?
No, they're comparable experiences. Me at the University of Miami and you on Broadway.
One night only in front of 20 people. Same thing.
I think it was performance 250.
Yeah.
And I had a son during that run of the show, and so I was waking up early some nights trying to give my wife a break, and it was like, this one morning I was like 3 a.m, and I was like, oh, this is not going to be good if I try to go to the show. But I did. And there's a song called Highest Judge of All. And I won't do the whole thing, but the end is like, take me before the highest throne and let me be judged by the highest judge of all. And it's really loud and huge, and it's like this statement, just like at the end of Soliloquy. And boy, there was nothing. I mean, you could judge a lot about. I mean, it was like, "Let me jump by the highest judge." I mean, it didn't even like the of. You know when you have like 2 notes leading up to the high note that are roasted.
Yeah.
If you're giving scorched tone on the leading notes up, then you're just gassed. And at the end, it goes rum rum rum. Like that's the music. And so I'm standing there looking all ferocious, like I did something. And inside, what I really felt was like, I just wanted to apologize to 1,500 people. So it happens, and that was it was pretty rough.
Yeah, it was just, and it was a tough life. I was very neurotic about it. I still get neurotic about my voice, but the worst I have to do is talk for an hour for stand-up. But like, I can't imagine your whole life. Do you do you get nervous ever before these shows? When do you call out? I mean, how do you figure it out?
You know, I at this point I've been doing it for since 2006, about 17 years. So I don't get nervous about my voice, but I have trained myself to sort of live like a monk when I'm doing a show.
Yeah.
So I'm drinking a gallon of water a day, and I'm working out a lot, and I'm practicing all the time. But there's nothing like that moment where sometimes you go to a show and you're just like, I don't know if it's going to happen today, but you kind of roll the dice. That is a feeling like, when you're on a roller coaster, you just go, that feeling that's right here.
Yeah.
It's rough. And when it happens, you're like, oh, it just happened. I guess it's kind of like if you happen to, not that you've ever, but like bomb in front of an audience,
Yeah, I don't know.
Stand up.
Like.
Stand up. Oh, yeah, but then you just go, you know what? There's 1,500 people, and I still have a job. They're not going to fire me, and this happens sometimes. It's life, and you move.
Sure, but sometimes people do get fired for like a bad. I mean, I'm sure it's happened before. I've heard the stories.
You got to be consistently messing up to get fired like that. Yeah. If you're stringing them together and you can't do it, then if
What is it like with steroids for like, I remember back in college, it would be like
There's
you
the
heard
one
like,
everyone
ooh,
uses.
someone took a
Starts with
steroid.
P.
is it pregnant?
Yes, yeah.
Pregnazone? Could it be?
Prednisone?
Yeah,
No.
prednisone. Something like
gosh,
that,
I don't
though.
remember what it's called.
But I feel like singers use it a lot.
Yes.
Pills or an injection or?
There's both. So there's something you get kind of on your booty, and it kind of helps you go. And you can just kind of all of a sudden you're a vocal Olympic.
Really?
Yeah. And
What does it do? I want
But you have to
I
be
could
careful.
try it once,
You have
right?
to be careful. You have to be careful because
Just to sing Carousel one time, go on stage, give me a
Redeem yourself.
shot. Take it.
You have to. I heard you have to be careful because then you feel like a superhuman, like you could do anything. But then people accidentally push and like hurt
You can
themselves because they don't
severely-
know that they're pushing because it's like so like
You could severely damage yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. You feel like one time I've taken them before. In 2019, I think it was 19. I was doing a show called The Wrong Man off Broadway, and I just didn't have it. But once you take the pill, you have to really, really careful because if you all of a sudden you feel like you're Stevie Wonder and Katy Perry, like in a, and it feels like
You're blind walking around like, oh shit, this pill.
but your muscles aren't strong. It's just like a momentary.
What happens? It becomes like what does it do to your cords?
I think if there's a lot of like severe inflammation, it can thin your cords out a little bit, like ibuprofen, but in a much more intense way, so that your cords are just pristine.
Do you have this at home in a cabinet just in case?
No. You have to go see there's some doctors that you can see, like some vocal doctors.
I feel like there must be people who abuse
Stash
it.
it. Yeah.
Sure.
you.
But I think it's easy once you're in Broadway. Like there's like they know what doctor to go to quickly.
Yeah, but I'm saying like some people who like they fall down that hole and then one day it stops working.
Yeah.
And
You
they
gotta
need
be
a
careful.
second shot. All that stuff.
Yeah, just to get through. Yeah. That's a fear. Like I've taken it. I've had 2 in my career, and the thought is, well, I don't want to have to get used to this. But the show after you don't take it, you're definitely like, oh, am I still there? I'm good, right? I don't know. Oh, so.
What about is nodes surgery? Because I remember the whole thing with Julie Andrews had nodes, and then she could never sing again. That was what they said. You didn't know that? Well, she got nodes removed, and then she couldn't like. I think it sounds weird if she sustains a note or something. And this was like way back when the surgery was like they went in there with like scissors and it was brutal. But like I assume it got better. But like I'm sure people have gotten nodes and had to take a break.
Yeah, and some haven't recovered.
Oh.
Yeah, because if you start singing back again too soon, then you just develop these habits. It's like if you break your leg and then you're always walking on one leg, and so stuff in your hip jacks up and then your back, and you're just not walking the same.
Don't get notes. You were scared for a second. You pulled something.
My throat was hurting because I do a lot of yelling in the show. I don't have like a lot of singing. I have like 3 little tiny lines within songs, so I don't have to sing a lot. But I mean, I sing a lot in the chorus, but not like, I don't have a solo. But I scream a lot, and so there was a week where I was like, I'm hurting myself. And but I think I figured it out now, where I can do it in a healthier way. That it's not. I don't feel like I'm in danger.
Do you ever dream about leaving the Broadway grind? I mean, or do you really hope that it's always kind of a part of your life?
You know, I've talked about this pretty openly because music is such a big part of my life now, and that was like my first love. There are very few things on Broadway that excite me these days. I can see the end of it. You know, I definitely can see the end of it. I don't know when that's going to be, but when you stop having like dream roles and you stop getting like excited to do 8 shows a week, I mean,
if it was no matinees, could you
too
picture
many
that?
Shows.
Matinees is a problem. Matinees need to go.
And the audiences are bad, and they're not fun. They're not fun. Those shows, and it should be 6. I think.
If it's 6, like the next show that I do, even if it's 7, because if for you who don't know, it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday's the only day you have off.
Yeah.
To not do anything. So for me, if I could not do the Sunday, then I'd have all of Sunday, all of Monday, all of Tuesday, and then the night show. So you have like 2.5 days. That's manageable.
Yeah.
Is that a place? Do you have to be insanely famous to request that?
You have to be at least as famous as I am.
Because that's Leah Michelle right now. I think that's her thing. She doesn't do matinees.
Funny Girl. Yeah. She doesn't do matinees. I didn't in 2019. The show Wrong Man. I did 7 shows a week.
Sure.
And that was like a new lease on life after 15 years of doing 8 shows.
Yeah. Wasn't there that famous? It was who's that famous actress who, like in Russia, she played Ophelia, and she said something. She's like, "I can only bare my soul 4 times a week."
Oh, I
and
don't
that's
know. I don't know.
that's what you got to say.
Yeah.
To your family, I bet they were from Jamaica.
Yep.
And they immigrated to Canada,
Yeah.
to Winnipeg.
Winnipeg, which is where. Yep.
Yeah. And why? Why Jamaica to Winnipeg?
Jamaica's. What was the reason? Oh yeah. So there's a big connection between the Caribbean and Canada, or at least there was in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
So they went to university in Canada and didn't have to deal with the drama that it takes to come to the States.
Sure.
So me and my brother were born there, and my sister, and then when we were 3 years old, they were like, "This is too cold." So we went back down to Miami when I was like 3 years old.
How'd they get their like green card and stuff for Miami?
I don't know. I was 3.
Sure.
But they did. I really don't know.
Do you consider yourself? Because it says you're. I was surprised. I forgot that you have Canadian citizenship.
I do. I've got both.
How have you spent a lot? Like, do you consider yourself a Canadian, or it's just
Only when it's convenient.
Only when it's
Yeah. I mean, I don't. People are like, "Oh, what hockey team you from?" I'm like, nah.
Is there good theater there in Canada?
Not that I know of. There's a lot of film and TV that films there, and that helps to when you have dual citizenship. You can just breeze through.
I saw Lord of the Rings the musical, which was a big in Toronto. I was in high school. We went there. It was like a 5-hour. It was like supposed to be 3 hours, but they kept having technical difficulties, so it would always go like 4 or 5 hours. And they tried to cram all 3 books into this one musical. So the government paid for it, and it was a disaster. It was one of the worst shows I've ever seen in my life, and it was a big flop. Nice. But you liked Miami. That's where you were living.
Yeah. You know what? Miami was way too slow.
What does that mean?
Like it was just. If you don't know Miami, it's like half of it is a party town, and the other half is retired folks. So I wasn't into the party scene, but and everything just felt really slow for me. So even at our University of Miami days, it's like palm trees and it's beautiful, but everything just seemed to be moving at like 5 miles an hour. It wasn't until I got up to New York in 2006 that I was like, I felt like I belonged here. Like
Yeah.
The pace, the passion, the crowds are just moving fast. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this feels good.
Yeah, I shouldn't have gone to that college because I went to 1 football game. I went to the beach 3 times, Disney World once. I mean, it was totally wasted on me. I spent every fucking day at a practice room just singing, and that didn't go anywhere. It was a mess.
You sound great, by the way.
That's so please.
Doesn't he sound great?
Please.
You could have been my understudy.
Please, I warmed up for 3 hours before this podcast. And you were, when did you start getting into theater? Were you a theater kid in high school?
I did something junior year, so I guess kind of late. I did The Music Man. I played
Hell yeah.
Harold Hill.
I did Harold Hill, 8th grade.
Hey.
Hey,
Wow.
great role.
Wow.
Yep.
Now, would you do that one on? First of all, you're too good looking to be the Music Man. Let me tell you something. Hugh Jackman.
really mad
let me,
about Hugh
I have a huge beef with Hugh Jackman being the Music Man. I can't do it on stand-up because no one fucking knows. But Hugh Jackman is too good looking to be the Music Man, because the Music Man, the whole thing is he's a seducer. He's a con man. He goes into the library and has to seduce Marianne. If Hugh Jackman walked into any library in America and said, "Hey, you want to go on a date?" he wouldn't have to sing a song. She'd say yes.
Yeah.
I'm sick of good-looking people playing Seymour in Little Shop
Yeah.
and Harold Hill. Oh,
Yeah.
what's his name? What's his name? Played to Seymour in the Encore's production. Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh,
Jake
yeah,
Gyllenhaal
yeah,
plays
yeah.
Seymour. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
The plant should have eaten him first.
Yeah.
I can't.
I have an issue with Hugh Jackman in The Music Man because, no offense, but I found out that they had a bit every night that they staged like a blooper. That was choreographed.
What do you mean?
Like they broke, like him and Sutton Foster, like every
Jimmy
night
Fallon-esque,
in the same
like-
part, like pretended this thing went wrong, and it was like staged, and it was like every night. Like it just feels like
That's infuriating. Like they had one natural moment on stage and they said, "Let's do that
yeah,
forever."
every night. Yeah.
Well, do you know what they did?
Well, because it's just like kind of a boring show. I think that they were just like,
I don't think so. It's
okay.
a great if the Music Man's not fucking stunning.
Okay.
I think it could be a fantastic show.
I don't know.
I love that show.
Me too.
Did you? I mean, well, you got trouble. That was the most fun I ever had in my life.
Man. Yeah. You got trouble, my friend. Right here, so trouble right here in River City. Oh, it's
When you did in high school, like, were people like, "Holy shit"?
yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of killed it.
Sure.
Yeah.
That was when I sort of got bit by the bug, the performing bug, and I had a teacher that came up to me afterwards, and she was like, "This is something you could really do," and she was like crying when she said it, and you know when someone is like crying and like saying your future, I was like, it was a little intense.
Okay,
to me.
now tell me, where is this? Is this like, are
This
there
is
people
in-
around being like, "Does anyone know this woman? Does she work here?"
This is like, is she the? No. She was the music teacher. She was the choir teacher. And it was her first year at the school. This school graduating class was like 20 people. So the chances that I'm here right now are it's crazy.
wow.
So it's like she came there just for me. She literally left the year after I graduated. So we did the production that she put on, and then she took me into this hallway after the last performance. We did like 5 performances, and she was like, the shake of that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was like a 17-year-old, 16-year-old kid being like, what do you, she said, you can do this for a living. And I was like, do what? I really was,
Wait.
I didn't know.
So how did you decide to audition? Like what was? Well, yeah.
Well, there's some songs in it, like Till There Was You, this beautiful song, and I sang. So I was like, okay, well,
I see.
I like to sing. I grew up like singing in church, and that was fun. So I decided to try out. And
Were you the star of the church singing? Like,
no, not really.
No?
No, I wasn't even like, no.
was it fun singing or was it boring singing? Was it like really
at
like
church?
wailing or was it just like Jesus? That's
I don't know that song.
you don't know that song?
like-
There must be a song. There must be a song with those pitches that
like,
starts
was
out Jesus.
Again,
I'm
I think
sure
it's
of it.
higher.
You're like, was it white church or like, you're like, is it boring white church?
Well,
music?
of course,
Yeah,
I've been to both. I remember when I lived in Harlem for a long time, and I went to a church one day just to see some singing. And I'm like, I could see being a Christian if this had been the songs.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. It's a whole different
you got
ballgame.
tambourines.
Was it like
Yeah, I mean,
which church? Is it all? Is it a certain like kind of a sect of Christianity that has like the real fucking jams?
So the Pentecostal, what's it called, sect of Christianity, like those churches are usually pretty lively. They're the praise and worship is like jamming.
Yeah.
Like if you switch a couple words out, you'd be like, is that Cardi? You know what I mean? Like sometimes. But yeah, you got tambourines. You got like just incredible players. That's how I got my singing chops is in church. And so I wasn't anything special until I got to University of Miami, and they were like, oh, wow, you actually can sing.
They had me. They had a gospel. They had 3 a cappella groups in my high school, and they added me to the gospel choir, and it was pretty rough. I'm sure it was. Can you do gospel?
Can I do gospel?
You're
I mean,
Titanic.
You're Titanic. Jazz it up.
I don't know if I should, but yeah. Physically, yes.
Yes, good. Okay, so then you went from there. You went to Miami. Were you the star at Miami from the gate, or?
I think after sophomore year, I kind of became the star.
Yeah.
But honestly, like I was the lowest on the totem pole, and I really like you can ask Bruce Miller, all of our teachers there. Like I knew nothing. I didn't know what music theory was. You're trained. I couldn't name you one musical, so I failed music theory like.
You couldn't even name Music Man
Two
after you
times.
started it?
No, I could sing it, but I couldn't write it on paper. It was crazy. I had to stay longer after I graduated to finish music theory classes.
Ugh, I hate that
music
shit.
theory.
I hate music
hate
theory.
it.
I hate it.
Oh,
So music
No one
theory,
likes
it's like
it.
they'll be like, there's someone on a piano where you can't see. They go bum bum. What's that? And you're like a fourth, a fifth, or like it's that kind of shit. It's
Yeah.
just, was it really important? Was it really important?
Music theory, no. Ear training, yes, because then the music theory is just like, I don't know, it's like learning Latin
it's like
important?
math. It's
I
like
don't know.
math with.
It's not. I took that too. Neither is important. Latin and music theory, both entire waste.
Yeah.
It expands your mind, but like it doesn't help me in my profession.
Yeah.
Now as a producer, more like trying to put together sounds and chords to make music. Yeah, but that's something that I got into a little bit later.
Now, I've talked plenty on the podcast about my feelings about getting a degree in musical theater, and complicated feelings. Not entirely resentful, but
mostly.
like but yeah. You have kids now. If they were getting into theater, would you? And they said to you, Dad, clearly you had such success with this musical theater degree. You're on the flyer that they're going to use for the next 100 years. Saying you are the reason. Send your kid to the college Joshua Henry went to. What would you tell your kids?
You got trouble, my friend. I don't. It's so hard. Like I really believe in like you're pursuing your dream. I would say, hey, if you want to do it, you don't have to do it how Daddy did it, but you have to know that it's really, really hard. It's one of the hardest things you will ever do. So if you want to, this is how you have to prepare.
Yeah.
If you want a sliver of a chance at success. And so I would just paint a really clear picture. But if, they want to go for it, then they'll go for it. I mean, pretty soon enough if,
I think that's my 4 years is just the 4-year structure was not designed for the arts. Isolating yourself on a campus away from everything. That's a structure they built for mathematicians and scientists, and now they're like, now it's a musical theater degree. I think you could go for 2 years somewhere. I think those programs are better. Or go somewhere where you're working the moment. Be an ensemble member in the regional theater.
Agreed.
Do that because you got to get in the real world. Partially because you might find out, you know what, I want to do stand-up comedy instead, or I want to do costume design instead. Like, you need to be in it, and I think the problem is colleges can isolate you, so you figure out where you fit into that ecosystem, and you become a creature who, like, you thrive there, and then you think, oh, I'll be like this in the real world, and you're not.
You're really that's.
I've thought about it a great deal.
Well, because there were so many people and I won't name any names, but that I went to school with that were like, this going to be the stars,
Yeah.
And then pretty soon after senior year, it was clear that they didn't want that.
Yes.
But they didn't really. It was nice to be the it girl or it guy on campus.
Yeah.
Of
Of course.
starring in all the things. But a lot of people don't. It's a hard life. Like, it's a really, really hard life.
And I think the thing that you can't understand either is doing the same show for that long a time. You can't even conceive of it, because in college the most you do 3 weeks of a show, maybe 2 weeks. Yeah. And I remember the first play I did that was like 6 weeks long. And that's when I kind of realized, I said, I'm going crazy. This is not what I like to do. I do not like to do the same thing over and over. I go nuts.
What year was this?
This was, I graduated 2011, so this was like 2013. I did an off-Broadway play. And it was not a good play. First of all, also to be in something that's getting panned is tough. And you're still doing it for 6 weeks. But I got bored, and I realized, this is not what I want to do. You've been doing this show how long now?
November.
And you've never done a show this long. Eight shows a week?
No, not this much. I did 3 shows that were a year, like a Shakespeare
Incredible.
tour that was like a year long. So, but you were rotating 3 shows, and it wasn't always 8 shows a week, because you were touring. So
What's the longest you've been in one show?
The longest was a year and a half. That was Hamilton. I opened the Chicago company and then did the first national tour. But like you, I got to kind of split it up. So I did it for 6 months in Chicago, and then I did it for, another 9 or 10 months in LA. And
I'd imagine, too, touring for those where you're there for like 2 or 3 weeks, sometimes a month, that helps the kind of break up the monotony of like, oh, you're getting to kind of explore another place. I don't know. Maybe on a tour,
For sure. Well, our tour wasn't even, it was 2 cities. It was San Francisco and LA, so it wasn't really a tour. But I want to ask you, like with Shakespeare, what did it feel repetitive after? Because
yes,
yeah.
I had one show I liked, and then by the end of it, I hated the other 2 shows.
What was the one you liked? Othello?
I liked doing Merry Wives, and I didn't like doing Othello. I was barely in, so it just was like kind of like I would basically move furniture for that one, kind of. So I hated doing that one because felt like a lot of work for no payoff. And then the other one was just really boring to me. Henry IV Part 1, like
one behind the scenes thing about Russell. Russ and I are on a sketch team together. He's a great performer, great to work with. But if you're in the wrong place on stage, Russell will pick you up and move you to where you are very you will. I've been picked up by you. You go here. You're very you will run that stage.
Yeah,
you're very genteel and not confrontational. But when the lights go out, you become a
we had an understudy
bulldozer.
in the other day, and I noticed that I snapped at her.
Russell!
I'm playing her mom though. I'm mean. But she wasn't in the right spot, and I was like, but I had and I recognized in the moment. I was like, oh, Gianmarco does say I do grab people and move them. No, I think this show is helpful. The one I'm doing right now is that it is quick and it is a little different every night, just because there's a couple of built-in things that we can change slightly. So it feels. Sometimes there's definitely you're going to start, you're like, I'm not really feeling it right now. But once it starts, it feels fun and still. But I think of those people that have been with Phantom from the beginning and are still doing it. How do you not?
Lion King. I know people that have been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah.
What can you do for 20?
If I hear The Lion King now, having seen it 20 times in my life, I'm just I can't even listen to the songs. I go crazy.
20 years I can't even think about. Like I said, year and a half is the longest. But I would say if any performers out there who are thinking about doing this, one thing that really helps is think about a different word for the day, for the show. I might think about just, and this sounds a little funny, but glide or ease or diction. Just something to focus on that you're still improving, although you're doing the same thing every day. Because it's not unlike if you had any other job, to not make it monotonous. You have to think about how you're growing in one aspect of it. That's one thing that helps.
You think in Phantom, they're I'm going to think, don't kill myself on stage.
That's good. Yeah.
Don't put myself in the way of the chandelier right as it's crashing to the stage. What's going to be your word for your next Titanic performance?
Oh, that's good. I don't know. I've been noticing that when I am not bored isn't the right word, but I get extra annoyed with bad audience members. I notice that's something that I want to stop doing because I'm in fights in my head about someone who's not enjoying the show, and that's not a great place to live in.
When Mike Pence went to see Hamilton. And they did their speech at the end. What would you have done if they had called you and they said, Joshua, I know we didn't cast you in the original cast of this, but could you tell us what to do with Mike Pence in the audience? What would you have said? Oh
my gosh.
Because to me, it came off from outside of the world. It came off as lame. It came off as you gave him the show. He doesn't care what you have to say. He's there. He doesn't give a shit.
He's gonna. What happened? Give me
so
more
okay,
context.
so Mike Pence showed up at the Hamilton, and they performed the show. And then at the end, as he was about to leave, they who do you know who said it?
Yeah, Brandon Victor Dixon, great friend. He was playing Aaron Burr at the time. He got
and this
up.
is nothing against him. I'm just saying, it's a tough position to be. You have to perform for people. That's the job. You perform for people.
So basically, the producers and the creative team came up with a statement that they wanted to tell Mike Pence, and then someone had to deliver it. Like, I don't like the selection process. That must have been weird. Who wants to give this message? I'm like, what you gonna say? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I will say this. After that, it was pretty rough online for a minute. Like,
yes?
I was slated to then go into the Chicago company. I was getting like death threats. Like,
Oh my God.
anyone associated with that, not to bring it down, but this is the downside.
Yeah.
And it was rough.
You ever get any? I
Wait,
saw on
what was
Broadway.
the statement they said though to Mike Pence?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, Mike Pence was, known also very homophobic and had lots of bad beliefs, and it was
No,
just.
Mike Pence is. But,
And Trump was president during this whole thing too, so that added to the fire of it. But it was like a statement about inclusivity and like, you see, look what we've done here, and this is about the founding fathers, and it was this was the problem with it. It was a generic, in my mind, positive, be more welcoming statement, the kind that any politician could nod their head out and then walk about and do nothing differently, as opposed to A, not saying anything at all, B, going out there going, fuck you, C, not performing the show, which to me, if you really want to stick it, really want to say fuck you, you go out there, the whole cast, and you go, fuck you, Mike Pence, and then you go off, and that's it. But you can't put on a good show and then be like, please be more inclusive, we know you won't, and we know you haven't been, bye.
I don't think they could have done that.
Why? Lin-Manuel could make that call.
Because he really wanted the show to run. Like,
You think it would have canceled the whole show?
yeah,
Really?
yeah.
That would have been amazing. Oh, that would. But then you go down. But what a great way to end a show, to tell the vice president to go fuck himself.
I'm starting to
that is
understand some
theater.
things. Stand up is the world for you, Mike. This is not the way you.
yeah.
I don't think the show had been running for a year. I think it maybe a year. But if they would have come out and said something like thrashing,
Yeah.
then you just spit in the face of your art, because you're talking about being inclusive and you're talking about, togetherness. This is the way the country should look. And then you're like, but screw you. They're like, what do you? Yeah.
Thank you for not saying fuck.
Yeah.
I just think it just didn't do anything. And ultimately, I think like another time that Broadway, I feel like Broadway can come off as corny. And I remember
Facts.
at the DNC, I forget which DNC this was. I think it was for Hillary Clinton. And there was just like Broadway singers on the stage, and Broadway has always been associated, but it felt this weird. Whenever the arts becomes too tied to a specific political party, it's like in a way it just becomes propaganda. And it's like I think sometimes art has to divorce itself from propaganda if you ever hope for it to affect people's minds. And I would argue, on like the flip side of saying fuck you to Mike Pence, that by making that kind of statement, you are forcing an audience to see your show specifically through party lines, thus preventing you from possibly Inception style sneaking into their minds and changing their thoughts naturally.
Agreed.
And that's why we have
Agreed.
Ted Cruz here tonight. No.
Has there ever been anyone in the audience where you were like, oh, fuck, I got to put on a show for this motherfucker? Or vice versa. You can say a nice one, too.
No. I would say there was one moment. I like to know who's coming. Like,
Sure.
It doesn't bother me. Some people are like,
Yeah.
don't tell me.
Do you like?
I like knowing too. Yeah.
There was this one time. It wasn't anyone that was like really special, but where someone was filming. Which happens from time to time.
Of course, we're all dealing with it.
But they were the front,
I mean, but I'm saying, we're all
Yeah.
dealing with like this. You either
Yeah.
take away the phones or they're going to film it. And even if you do take away the phones, they might have a second one. We
Yeah.
don't know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This guy was front row, and I was like, "Yep." It was like 3/4 round, which is basically this. So they're here, here, and here. And a show, it was called The Wrong Man, where, it was a pretty intense show. And y'all have heard of this Patti LuPone incident, perhaps you haven't, but like where she will stop a show. She would stop a show and be like, you stop filming. Nah.
And famously, she did it once, and it was an approved New York Times photographer taking press photos.
It's like, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And so in the moment, like I never saw myself doing it, but he was like, I felt like I was like a dolphin at SeaWorld. Like he was kind of just like, you know, and he wasn't being discreet about it. He was just holding it up like this. And I'm 2 feet away from him. And so I went up to him and I took the phone out of his hand. I'm singing at the same time. I took the phone out of his hand and I threw it under his seat. And the audience erupted. I was like, oh, I'm that guy now.
Oh my
I'm
God.
that guy. Now, it happened to be on a day where there were cameras in the audience taking B-roll, which is like just, so I didn't even know that. So here it is, like the one time I do something like that, that happens. Every show wanted to call me to come in and talk about, okay, well, it was this huge story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm this like nice, positive theater guy, and it was a pretty ferocious little moment. But yeah, to his credit, he stayed afterwards because he felt really bad. And it was like an hour and a half after the show, and he waited for me outside the stage door, and he was like, man, I'm really sorry. I just got really excited in the moment. And I was like, it's all right. I'm still going to keep your phone, but don't.
Yeah, people don't know that it's weird. Like, we've had people DM us as cast members, like, 10, 15-minute clips from the show, and you're like, you're not allowed to do this, and why then send it to us? Like, we're like, cool, like,
People-
you know,
people-
like,
Me post this.
yeah.
It's scary in stand-up obviously, because like I'll be working on something new or something edgy, and you see people film, and I mean they'll have I've like, and I can't become, if I do that moment or if I become mean, then I'm not the cool guy anymore. I'm like the principal, and now I can't be funny. And I have little lines like, oh, could you stop? I'm hoping to be on a bigger platform than your phone, and I get a little laugh. But then it's good. And but I mean, I've had people and then they go, no, I'm sorry, my friend, I want her to see you too. And I'll be, you know, well, you got to buy tickets. And they're like, oh, she lives in, you know, France. And you would hope that the ushers, and maybe they don't have the staff or the Broadway theaters aren't paying enough to have enough people. They need to be the ones looking at the audience. You can't be doing it from on stage.
Yeah.
And but I will say, when I was in theater in college, bootlegs were very cool.
Yeah.
Bootlegs.
It's a whole underground.
It's a
network.
whole thing.
Yeah.
I can't believe there's enough people to sustain it. But like, there were websites where it'd be like, I got this Mandy Patinkin in falsettos, and I was like, I'll pay whatever you want. And it's, you know, it's shot over someone's shoulder. You're like, I wish they had front row and they were just doing it like this. It would have been greater. But it is a bummer. Broadway seems to have never figured out. Like the Lincoln Center has all these recordings of all these Broadway shows.
Yeah.
But you got to like, I remember I had to pretend I was writing a paper. You got to go there.
You can't just roll up in there and be like, I'd like to see this performance. They're gonna be like, why? And you're like, because I like it.
I just watched it. The one thing I saw, it was The Seagull, and it was with Meryl Streep, Natalie Portman, Philip Seymour Hoffman, 18-year-old Natalie Portman, like in her first lead role. Philip Seymour Hoffman, who's the guy from Roseanne? John Goodman, Christopher Walken. I mean, it's crazy. And it's shot beautifully. It's not shot like a bootleg. And you just think this library exists out there that can never be released because it would require a lot of paperwork and everyone would want different rights. But it sucks. It's too bad.
Yeah.
And then choreography would get stolen. Like, there's a whole market in terms of like regional shows, and it's complicated.
It is. It shows, and then you can do it overseas or in high schools, and if people get that, they can just pretend like, oh, I made this up, and they can sell your show. So, yeah, it's tricky.
What's your stage door policy?
The last show I did at the St. James Theater on like 44th Street, Into the Woods, we weren't allowed to take pictures or sign any autographs just because just COVID. While it's not as much of a thing now, they just didn't want to risk it at all.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Was that a relief?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I have 3 kids now. So I have a 5-year-old and twins that are 2 years old. So I just, that little less interaction with folks. Y'all are fine. But was
Autographs after the show, whatever you want.
Yeah.
We got merch.
Hugs and kisses, like whatever you want. That was a relief at that point.
But before that, I mean, were you?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was all up in it to win it. Like, just autographs and.
Did you ever see the guys? Because I know there's people out there where they just want your autograph to sell it on eBay.
Oh, here's how you deal with those. It's usually like a piece of white a white paper that they just want to lift your signature off. So I just never give them a real signature. I just like kind of go like doop, doop, like a smiley face, and I'm like, no, that's my signature. Like I just don't really give them the real. real thing.
Yeah. What does your autograph go for these days?
What platform are you like, it depends. Like, I don't know. I haven't heard a quote recently.
Yeah.
But
I'll look it up.
I'd have to guess. It's at least like $2,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
That's just.
Oh,
I got my own card. Like they have like these Broadway trading cards, so I have a couple of those that they.
Are the stats on the back, or there's things like
like
he hit the B
sings
flat
up.
80% of the time?
He's there at 90% of the shows. He hits a B. Once he hit a C, it's like once he had a grand slam. Yeah, there's some stats there.
So your first Broadway show was in the Heights.
Yup.
I think I saw it.
Jam.
Oh God, it was so cool. Before I knew anything about Lin-Manuel, it was just such a good show. When you got that ensemble role, are ensemble members paid decently for Broadway, or do you think it's not great?
I think they do get paid well.
Yeah.
At the time, like right now, an ensemble role, you're getting like $90K plus a year.
Damn, that's
Yep.
pretty good.
With like contributions to your 401K. When I got into the ensemble of In the Heights, I called my mom and I was like, "This is it. Like I don't need to see anymore. Like and it was also like salsa and hip hop. I grew up in Miami, and that's like all I heard. And so it was a moment where I was like, I don't need to see anything.
What was the first time you played? Was it Benny you were understudying?
Yeah.
What was the first time was it good? The first time you did it, when you played Benny.
So we started off Broadway, and I did it a couple times off Broadway, and I nailed it. But my first Broadway performance was not the best, because there's a scene of the second act, and I was across from Manny Gonzalez, who's this incredible performer. She played Nina. And she and Benny are like in this romantic little pose, and she's teaching him Spanish, and I just butcher the words. It's like I butcher the words. And she starts laughing hysterically. Not like,
Not in character.
she's like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, just trying to like stay in love. Oh, it's funny, man. Yeah, I don't know Spanish. Then I see Lin-Manuel come stage right. You know, you can see someone in the wings.
Yeah.
You can kind of see them come up. And I was like, oh, man. And like 4 or 5 other cast members come out. And he's just like, and I'm like, this is not good. This is not good. She for like 2 minutes, she laughed in my face.
Oh, that's a long time.
So that was
Really
probably
long
the
time.
longest 2 minutes of my life. I think my parents were there, and it was like my principal Broadway debut. It did not go according to plan.
That's actually the scene that Hugh Jackman and Son Foster did
Yeah.
in The Music Man. It's the scene where she's teaching him Spanish, so he can start selling to Spanish speakers his musical instruments. And then I know you left In the Heights and you went to do Godspell. It was your first principal.
I was about to.
You were about to.
And that was 2008. So the marquee was up. So I was in the ensemble, and I was about to do my first principal role, like originate on Broadway. Godspell, and the marquee was up, and then everything crashed. And we were literally in rehearsal, and they told us this is not going to happen.
How'd they tell you? Mid
This is
rehearsal,
not gonna
end of
happen.
rehearsal. But did they like how close to opening night or previews were you?
We were in, I think we were a week away, actually.
And you had left
So-
In the Heights to do this. Like you
left a Grammy Award-winning, Tony Award-winning show that's job security, and then to take that leap, and you're like, and then that fails, and so you can't just say, "Psych, can I get back?" But it
I
happened
mean,
to
you
me.
could go back and beg and crawl, but they've signed new contracts with new people.
Someone already took my place. So, but I'm glad that happened early on, because it's nice to get the reality of the business, and then you realize, well, it can't be a contract, or it can't be, it's like money that I put all my heart and soul into, because it's got to be something else. That's the through line of all.
Were there
of this.
warning signs that you should have paid, that looking back you would have known now, or reasons you would have not taken that Godspell job?
No. Because we did it. It was already. We did a show before, like in an off-Broadway place in New Jersey. It's not off-Broadway, but at the Paper Mill Playhouse. So we did it, and it was really well received. So that production was going to go to Broadway,
Yeah.
but everything was fine. The only thing that happened is everything crashed.
Yeah.
So the producers were like, sorry, we just can't do this.
I just talked to someone this week who similar experience. They were about to make their Broadway debut in a show, but the lead of it, I'm not gonna say who it was. They are a TV film person who was the whole show was kind of built around them. It's gonna go to Broadway because they're gonna be in it, you know. And they asked for too much money and refused to do the show then, and so the whole thing was canceled. And they were like, they had rehearsed it, it'd been played for a while off Broadway, and no more Broadway debuts. So
That's
brutal.
That's rough. Ugh.
You could tell us. It was off
You
Broadway.
could
It was
put the things together. Maybe what I just said. It
Last
ran off Broadway, and it was going to go to Broadway. Now it's not.
There's 1,000 different things that are going to pop up.
I will
I had
tell
a
you.
show that I could fit into that slot technically.
I'll tell you offline.
You'll tell me offline.
Yeah.
Okay, good. The closest. I mean, it wasn't a musical. But the first and only movie I got cast as a lead in, the funding fell through and it became a podcast. They changed the movie and they decided to turn to a podcast, and it was the saddest moment of my entire. So you're a very successful Broadway performer, but what do you have any overall critiques as a downside of how the Broadway system currently works, whether it be financial, whether it be the kinds of contracts and the kind of exclusivity, whether it be like how do you feel about the state of the industry?
I mean, it's complicated. There's so many incredible things, but we're gonna focus on the downside. And I think 8 shows a week is brutal to have a life.
Yeah.
And I also think, and I've talked about this openly, all the producers, all the theater owners, or 99% of them are white.
Yeah.
White men. And, the stories that are being told there's a lot of different kinds of stories being told, but the people that are profiting from that are the same type of person. And so I think that needs to change, and it's changing slowly.
Were there any shows particularly that you were like either didn't get a fair shake or you thought should have gone to Broadway and didn't? Like what are we talking about?
Well, for me, I've been really lucky, and I've been really, really blessed in my trajectory. I mean, so I have not had a direct problem with, I've had a pretty easy path, but I've seen it with so many other colleagues and so many other creative teams, and I think we're just at a moment now where we want to tell authentic stories, and we also want the people who the stories are about to benefit financially from them.
I see.
That's one of the main things that I think needs to happen more. And then you've got amazing organizations like Broadway Advocacy Coalition, Black Theater United, that are trying to ensure more of that inclusion in that way, in many different ways. But that's been a big point of emphasis in the last couple of years.
Does it ever feel, though, because I've only bought tickets to a couple Broadway shows in the last couple of years, and I just can't help but go, this is a rich people's game.
Facts.
And there's a degree where I'm like if you want to get theater that is into the vein of humanity, get out of these old dusty theaters where these gigantic mammoth things that cost $1 bazillion to rent every month, and I'm going to see, what is it, Corn Shucked, the musical? Shucked. It's about corn. Maybe that's cool. Corn needs representation, I guess, as well. But there's a degree of well, if you want that, get out of Broadway. Listen. This is me saying it very flippantly. Not. I know their lives depend on this industry. But from the outside, there's part of me a kind of tear it down mentality where I'm like, oh, Broadway's struggling after COVID. Well, these theaters are insanely big, and these budgets are way too high, and you have to do revivals and based off other entities, and let it all go. You're never going to find change in one of the most expensive theatrical institutions in the world.
I think that's a really good point. I had a friend of mine, Daniel Watts, who's this incredible poet and actor, and he was like, you know what? I'm not even mad at Broadway. They are doing what they set out to do.
Yeah.
To tell these stories on a huge scale and get mostly tourists to come in here and see these things. And so that has a certain model. So, but as someone who has, gotten a lot of, I'm now a little bit influential in the Broadway scene, and I know a lot of the producers and I know a lot of the creative teams. I care about the space.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I've done off-Broadway shows before that don't have to adhere to all the Broadway rules. There are amazing theaters, as y'all know, like out in Brooklyn or like all over the tri-state area, and great regional theaters where you don't have to adhere to the Broadway model. But I care about it. I've seen it. I know that it can be powerful, and I know that it can do more than it has done. So I'm gonna try to work towards that.
Yeah. Do you think you'll be in the producer space?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
One thing I did want to ask before we go on to our This Has Got to Stop is about Carousel specifically, because I think it's an interesting point about revivals, where you guys took out a part of Carousel, which I find it's such a fascinating part of the musical. I think we've talked about once on the podcast before, where Billy Bigelow, spoiler alert, dies. And then at some point, at least in the original version, he sees his daughter and hits her as the ghost or something.
Yeah.
And the daughter goes to the mom. And when was this musical written?
Oh gosh, I forget now. I don't remember the year. Is it in the 60s?
60s?
Gotta be late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah, I feel like
I can't remember the year now. But
Yeah,
50s,
well,
60s.
this will give you an indication of the time. The little girl says to her mom, "Mommy, can a man ever hit you and it feel like a kiss?" And she goes, "Yes, sweetheart, yes." And I'm not making this up. I feel like there's a judgment. Like I was like, what if we did this to the show,
Gianmarco.
and it was all a dream? This was in the show, and there's a degree where, okay, and here's another example: South Pacific, which I saw the revival of. The song "Younger Than Springtime" is about a soldier. Where is South Pacific set? It's in South Pacific. It's the
South
song
Pacific.
"Younger Than Springtime" is, you are so young that I love you so much because you're young. And we're not talking like, oh, a youthful 21-year-old.
Yeah.
We're talking some and I go like,
Asians.
look, if you want to do revivals, we got to admit what it is this was about. We have college kids. I sang "Younger Than Springtime."
Yeah.
No idea I was singing about something, a crime.
Yeah.
I was singing it wholeheartedly, fully. If I was singing it now, I would sing it like, "Younger than spring, no one can know about, nobody needs to know."
Oh, that's a deep cut.
Deep cut. Last 5 years, real deep. And with like Carousel, there's a degree where I'm like, write something new. If you don't want to confront the world that this is from, it's a degree of what I think the squeakiness of Broadway, where it's not really confronting. And you go, oh, Rodgers and Hammerstein, they were so wonderful. And it's like, well, you have to confront that they also wrote this line, and we deal with it artistically.
That was going to be my This Has Got to Stop. But it's but similar also in the way that sometimes they do revivals, and it's like, we're going to twist this one thing about it, which doesn't really make it that much more interesting. It just like, it feels like a trick to be like, look what we're doing here. Aren't we subversive or something? But it doesn't feel like it does anything. Like it's kind of still a boring show or not really related.
You know,
Does that make sense?
we have these beloved revivals that mean so much to us, whether it's Carousel or, West Side Story, and we have a different sensibility now.
Yeah.
We love the music. We love the
Yeah.
emotional content. We love where the characters went. But then it just makes us cringe a little bit. So for a Broadway whose major audience is a little bit older, they need their classics. They need their music because that's guaranteed money for sure.
Yeah.
And we love the stories, but we just love like 90% of it, and the other 10% is like problematic. So that's been a thing that you're like, write something new. For sure, and Broadway also has a hard time rolling the dice on new shows, which is another reason to your point where it's like, go create your own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were there any shows that you were in there where you looked at the audience and you said, fuck, I'm not performing for like it's like a bunch of old people. I want to perform for...
You know what? It was when we did Porgy and Bess.
Interesting.
Which was like, it's pretty much an all-black show. And you're looking out and you're like, there are not black folks out here, like seeing this incredible moment that is happening. And those are the moments you're like, you feel a little bit like, are you a part of this weird puppetry? You're like, this is my dream. I want to tell this incredible story, but no one out there it looks like me and is actually seeing this. Like everyone is like, it's a weird sensation. because we trained for this, and I love it. Yeah, it's strange.
Yeah. So is that your This Has Got to Stop? All right, well, this is our segment. We do This Has Got to Stop. Say something, anything. I'll complain. It's about, no offense, it's about, this has nothing to do with Broadway, so forgive me. This is about your wife. Jesus, the look. I see that Shakespeare coming out. He's like, I'm going to hit you. It's not going to feel like a kiss, I'll tell you that. It's going to feel like a hit.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be too blue at the end of this podcast.
Yeah.
We went to see a show, my girlfriend and I, with your wonderful wife.
Oh my God.
And we were walking to the car, and your wife said, "Oh, did somebody fart?" And now there's 3 of us there. And now when she says this, she knows she's not one of them. So I do what I normally do. I go, I don't notice anything. And I mean, literally, you can't even see. That's how intense this fart was. So, well, Tova and I convene. So then I say, oh, I don't smell anything. And we get in the car, and your wife goes, no, there's someone definitely farted. And I go to convene later on with Tova, and we found out that it was both of us.
Okay, I was gonna say it's interesting because I'm in the sketch group with you. And I feel like you're the most private about farting.
Yes.
Than everyone. I'm not that open about it. Like I feel like Chris and Douglas do it loudly.
They go, hey, and then they do it.
They do it. Like
and Jessica too. Jessica too.
So I feel like I'm right above you in terms of, but I'll say it if I'm gonna like go and do it in another room or something. Like, I'm open about it, but you...
I would deny it if someone's life was on the line. Yeah. If someone had a gun to your head, I'd say, it wasn't me, you're going to have to kill him.
Once or twice, I've been like, you definitely farted. So it's just interesting.
Was Tova there at the time when this happened? Okay, so that's please send the word back to her. I was shocked. Do you and her, do you go like, you're like, hey, Nicole, catch this?
Yeah, we're open about the farting.
Sure.
Sure. I'm not like seeking it out.
Sure.
I'm not, like it's not like a kink. I'm not like It's not our thing, but
Wait. I don't know how much time we have, but like, why the secrecy around the farting?
I think it must be a family thing. Like, listen, my girlfriend and I we did Whole30, and we had to move past that. We just had to move past that uncomfortability with each other. But I think it's like, it must be a family thing. I don't know. I've always been like, my mom always in the morning, she'd be like, oh, I got to take my morning constitutional. And I wanted to kill myself. I found something about it was so, I don't know. I feel so ashamed and I feel guilty. And
how do you, like for pooping, like do you,
I still keep the door closed.
Yeah,
the door closed with.
Do you have like sprays or candles or?
No. I just don't want to talk about it. I'm like,
okay.
we'll smell what we smell.
We all know what happened.
We all know what happened. And my sister, she's different. That's why I don't know how, but my sister will be. She'll be like, "Did you just poop?" And I'm like, stop it! What are we doing? Of course, yes. We all. It's like with Nicole. Of course, someone farted.
Yeah.
We know what happened. It's not a mystery.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people are really comfortable with it, so it's just like, oh, I farted, like.
I just feel like it's something we gotta embrace.
Yeah.
I'm not getting a lot of amens out here, but everyone's like, really?
Yeah.
It's the down underside.
The downside. And do you have a This Has Got to Stop?
What I think has got to stop? When you call, I've been thinking about this for a while. When you make a phone call and you get like whatever business you're going for, and they say anything other than exactly how much time it's going to be till you get to speak to someone. I don't care like if it's Domino's. Hey, welcome to Domino's. No. Tell me. I need to know down to the second 2 minutes until I get to speak to someone. Like that's just whatever the place is. It just really.
It's because they want you to hang up. All these things are so you hang up the phone.
Yes.
The music. Every time I'm like, I hate that. Why do they play music? It's because they want you to hang up the phone.
And then you press 0 like 5 times. Oh, sorry, we didn't get that. Stop playing with me.
It's
like, tell me how much time. I don't know.
I think it should be illegal for companies to say call times are longer than usual. because we all know it's always playing. It doesn't matter what time you call. And I truly think that we should make a contingency to free speech where you cannot say that phrase.
Yeah.
If it's not true. I agree with that 100%. So, and then we do, we've complained a lot, and thank you for, sometimes, listen, sometimes you get Broadway people, and they don't want to complain. They just want to sing a song. And they just want, oh, what a beautiful morning. We get it. But what a shitty night it was. So do you have we end with a blessing, something we're appreciative of. Do you have a thing you want to say?
You start.
Okay. I'm gonna blow yours out of the water. So you might want to say yours.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. I was thinking. I haven't done this on the podcast yet. But I think I'm very thankful for my castmates at Titanic. They're very welcoming, sweet, kind people that are. It's a joy to be doing that show with them, and I feel like I just feel pretty lucky to be in the group that I'm in. I feel very comfortable now. And very welcomed, and everyone's super funny. They're a very fun group of people.
It's true. You don't complain about the cast to me ever. It seems to be like really good.
Yeah, very.
Other
no
aspects,
complaints.
sure, but not the cast.
Well,
Paycheck. We have a podcast studio. And we've been building it. It's been at Tova's old place, and we have some framed pictures, and it's a lot of me. It's a lot of the downside, which is my big fat face, and other plays. But I recently got 2 photos framed of my buddy Russell. We got Russell. What is this? What is this, Russell?
Oh my
What is
God.
this?
This is Touchstone.
Touchstone.
Yeah.
And then this is a Russell as some kind of dark Shakespearean king. What's that one?
That's King John.
That's King John. So we're hanging them up tomorrow, but I wanted you to see.
I gotta send a picture
to make
to my
sure.
friend Vince.
Oh yes, please do.
So
And
funny.
Nicole, despite the farting, she told us these were the 2 pictures to do. So I'm thankful to her.
It's just very,
I know.
like you were like imagining playing the piano on the like that's where you were.
I remember that when we did that photo shoot, the guy was playing very weird Euro tech kind of like music the whole time, and I was like, this is such a weird, we're doing a Shakespeare photo shoot.
Yeah.
It was very coked up energy, anyways.
Well, good. And Joshua, do you have a blessing that you want to share?
Thank you, Gianmarco.
Of course.
What have I been thinking about recently? I'm grateful for New York, and because it's such a beautiful place where you can see so many different aspects of humanity in 5 minutes. I live on the Upper West Side, and it's close to the park. But every time I go, any time I walk in New York, I'm like, I get to live here. I get to see all these different types of people from many walks of life, and this air is different. Anywhere I travel outside of New York, I'm always wanting to get back. So I just love it. I've been here for 16 years, and don't y'all love it? I don't know.
Yeah.
For real.
A study came out today that the air in New York actually will take 5 years off of your life, but I'm glad it's beautiful right now.
Looks good.
And let's plug, because you have please check out Joshua Henry's all his Broadway work. I saw you in American Idiot too, way back in the day.
Wow.
But tell us about you have a new single out. Can't Nobody Tell Us Nothing.
Yeah, Can't Nobody Tell Us Nothing. It's about that feeling of intimacy and fireworks of love that only the heart knows. If you've ever been in love or hope to be one day, check it out. It's really cool. And I just released that. It's first song I'm gonna release from my album I'm releasing this spring. So check it out.
Hell yeah.
Wow.
Well, give a big round of applause for Joshua Henry. This is The Downside. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you.
You're listening to The Downside
The Downside.
with Gianmarco Soresi.